most critical aspect of all of these pointers is don't just look at everything only from a job or a specific transactional aspect standpoint. Look at the larger picture. What is the headroom for growth? And don't be afraid of being failure. Failure is not a bad term. It's not a taboo. Failure is equal to growth. It's in fact proportionally equal to growth.
Digital disruption is much more than an abstract concept promoted by analysts and vendors. It is now a reality for most organizations. More than one third of executives in the recent Forbes Insight Tracer data survey say they are being directly affected by the competition from digital and data savvy players in their market. Hello and welcome to the Honest Talk by Freak Folks. I'm Harsh Pandey. For this particular session, we have with us very special guest today, Mr. Supreeth Nagaraju, sir. He's a head education, digital media, India and South Asia at Adobe. So first of all, sir, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and actually agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Harsh. It's been a pleasure. It's my pleasure to be a part of this show. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It's our pleasure too. So moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is leadership in the age of digital complexity. Technology is moving our world at a hyper speed and most businesses are scrambling to keep pace. From how they engage with customers to how they plan, respond, and position for the future, everyday leaders, whether digital natives or business veterans, wake up to a new landscape and to a new decision for which there are no precedents. So, my very first request to you is please explain to our viewers how do leaders navigate this increasingly complex world?
Yeah. As first things first, we are in the midst of digital first. And what matters today is experiences and not so much of a technology centric approach. It is more customer experience centric approach that matters a lot. Uh, each individual is unique and they demand different formats of experiences across. Uh, what works for your mother may not work for you, and what works for you may not be something that is relevant for your relative, as an area. And what works for somebody who's an adult may not work in terms of an experience for a child or to be a teenager as an area. So different individuals have different motives and needs, and it is important for businesses today to understand the needs of every individual, clearly draw out uh, plans and roadmaps and experiences that matter to each one of them. And in this journey of hyper personalized experience, digital becomes a very important toolkit to reach these audiences in a very personalized way without having to, look at having huge amount of resources as an area and measuring some of their reactions to some of these areas in a very hyper scaling way. And digital technologies today are broadly into two clear categories. One is the media-based technologies, which is everything to do with the content creation space.
Yes.
And content creation itself is a humongous landscape in terms of engagement model, right? It's got everything to do with the video. It's got everything to do with the voice. It's got everything to do with design elements. It's got everything to do with the web technologies and a whole host of things around 3D aspects of it. So in a nutshell, digital engagement today needs to be centered around customer and the experiences that the customer would like to have in different forms and factors in a measurable way using digital as a super express highway.
Indeed, sir. I think you have very beautifully described this whole process. And I'm sure the people, those who are watching this session, they are going to find this meaningful. And sir, my next question to you is actually the business world has changed dramatically over the last few decades. And now we live in a connected society where the change can be fast-paced, constant, and unpredictable. Rapid advance in the technology have created an environment where the internet, smartphone, and social media are ubiquitous. And the 2008 global financial crisis and this 2020-2019 pandemic has increased the sense of turbulence, danger, and unpredictability in the certain areas. So, in your opinion, what are the critical skills required to excel in this fast-paced changing world?
So, Harsh, the first and foremost thing that I'd like to highlight upon today is in this fast-paced, digital and dynamic world, learning is definitely not a spectator sport. The students should effectively be in a position to understand that anything that they learn needs to be applied. Anything that they apply should make sense to a problem statement that is, touching millions and millions of citizens or prospective customers in a very defining. And creativity and innovation is a clear fabric of that particular skill to ensure that there is clear outcomes that do come out of it. They need to apply these knowledge so that there are clear outcomes out of it. Degree for the heck of degree or doing a program for a heck of program is not going to make any sense in the current hyper growth, particularly for India and also to the global markets as an area. So, few things that I'd like to highlight upon before I jump into critical skills that make a difference is there's a shift, tectonic shift in the way in which how the markets are moving, and hence there is an impact on the industrial demand from a skill development standpoint, also skilling and development standpoint. First is the fact that there is a shift from product to platform,
Yes.
right? That's the first significant shift. The second shift is the fact that from intuition, I know it. I've been there. I've had 25 years of experience, 30 years of experience. I exactly know how it works. It doesn't work anymore. Intuition to facts shift. That's a very important part of it, which is data driven in a many a larger way, right? Third shift is to do with transactions to experience shift, right? You no longer can treat an engagement more so from a transactional standpoint. You need to draw a map of experience. How do you latch on to the customer? How do you nurture the relationship? And then how do you go on to expand your relationship and an experience that can define uh, a meaningful long-term engagement with the customer or his influencing sphere in a long-term way. These are two to three major shifts that will define or in short make or break any businesses. And if you were to just reverse engineer it in terms of some of the critical skills that make a humongous amount of impact to businesses who are either digitally born or who are making a shift or a transition from an early boomer standpoint from physical to digital, or phygital is what they call, or organizations who have now been forced to jump into digital, who have been 100% reluctant to enter into digital world, are the following. First key thing is anything that you look and feel today is what sells. But what do you do in 100% digital world, in a world where physical stores or retail stores are not the only way forward, and for various reasons customers may not be able to engage with the source. Neither the source or the seller may not be able to engage directly. Example, a real estate market. Example, you want to go and buy, let's say, a luxury goods. Maybe a woman who wants to go and buy a luxury bag, and so on and so forth. That is where an augmented reality, virtual reality, technologies like this become very, very critical. Whether it is healthcare as a business, whether it is education, edtech as a business, whether it is a home utilities supply, for example, furniture for your home, or you want to buy, let's say, a new bicycle, to just have a exercise at your own living room as an area. The umpteen number of examples like these, where you need to look at augmented reality and virtual reality, which can help consumers relate to the product and then go on and make a humongous amount of change to their decision making process. It will impact. Needless to say, there is a lot of impact in terms of careers and job prospects as an area. Entertainment for that matter today, edutainment for that matter today, or even healthcare for that matter today. It's got a humongous amount of opportunities, both in terms of jobs and also in terms of entrepreneurship as an area.
Yes.
The second critical skill that I see, which is making humongous amount of impact and will continue to make a long-term opportunity is on web technologies, advanced web technologies like the user interface, user experiences, because web today is a fundamental fabric of communication, collaboration with business to business, business to consumer, or a business to consumer, B2B2C, as an area, or it could be any other format of engagements which is not for profit in nature as well, right? And user interface, user experience, can make or break the engagements in split seconds today. Just to give you an example, you want to go and make a purchase during a big billion day, which is happening, a sale might be happening online. You take few seconds whether you want to be on this website, you want to engage with the consumer, with the buyer, or whether would you like to engage with various co-buyers, who've been buying and rating about this particular product, different backgrounds that they come from, and so on and so forth. Or it could be a social media engagement that you're trying to have about a movie or a online shop that you're trying to watch for the weekend, and so on and so forth. So user interface, user experience on the web is one of the biggest skills that I see as a progression in that area. The third skill that I can think about, which can make a humongous amount of impact, is on the video side of it. We all love to watch video. Human mind likes stories. Storytelling is one of the biggest I would say a language that humans like, irrespective of backgrounds, the genres that we are all from. Now, given that factor, nobody would like to read anymore voraciously the way in which, of course, there is a market for reading books and so on and so forth. But then human mind tends to lean more towards, video-based engagement. So if you look at the statistical engagement of consumers today, video is the largest consumed format of content worldwide, including India, in different languages, or even without a language, so on and so forth. So the critical skill that I would recommend is largely to do with video-based engagement. That is video pre-production, post-production. There is gaming as an engagement today, game technologies, game design, VFX, animation, and so on and so forth. Right. So anything around the video space is definitely going to stick around and definitely bolster in a very, very big way. And needless to say, there are at least some 30 to 40 such similar engagement models that I can talk about. 3D technologies, 3D substance creation, because you'll get into an area where you will have at least few lakhs of products that you would like to showcase, or services that you would like to showcase. But you cannot keep creating original products and then keep shooting or taking photographs of all of these things. So that is where 3D content creation, real life experience. But just to give you an example, if you want to showcase, let's say, a new car that you have brought into the market, right? You cannot keep shooting real cars in a 3D way, multiple things. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to cost you money, and so on and so forth. So that is where there are various new technologies. For example, from Adobe, we have a new product line called Substance 3D, where you can create substances photorealistically in nature without actually taking photographs as an area. So there are multiple such technologies, and at the background of all of these things lies the cloud infrastructure, artificial intelligence and machine learning backed engagement technologies that will keep these live up and running. And these are few top technologies that can make life reality. And it's important for businesses to have strong fundamentals on what are the products that will actually meet the ulterior motives of millions of people, and then lean into the technologies as a means to the end, and not just as this technology for the heck of technology.
Yes, I think you have very beautifully defined all those things, and I'm very happy that you have talked about all those things in length. And I'm sure the people those are watching this session, they are going to actually understand this. And I'm truly very impressed from your this answer, sir, and the way you smartly defined all these things, how the shift is happening This is really great. And sir, my next question to you is actually we all are observing the great resignation is already happening, and many people believe the future of gig work hold great potential because it tends to be more meaningful and rewarding in more than just the monetary aspects. So my question to you is, how do you see the future of gig economy? And there's a one more emerging concept called solopreneur. So I want you to discuss all those things.
Yeah, sure. So it's got a connectivity to the earlier topic that we just discussed,
Yes.
right? And if I were to just double click on some of the points that I just discussed across, there are at least some 45 job roles that are critical in the landscape from digital and creative alone, the area where I've been working over the last 10 plus years, right? So the first things first, we've already defined some of the top skills in demand, which is the AR, VR, UI, UX as an area. There are many other complementary and supplementary skills that are very critical in nature, and some of these are not taught in our traditional classroom environment or a degree models as an area, right? Or even for that matter in a vocational space. So just to give you a few pointers, color and color specialists, as an area today is a very important aspect of any digital engagements today, right? So a color specialist, would make a humongous amount of impact in terms of how the aesthetics part of it makes a difference, right? So that's one area that I can talk about, and there is no formal role per se that I have seen in many organizations, and that is where the entire shift towards gig jobs are there. YouTube, artists, whether it is voice, whether it is video, whether it is anything to do with music, whether it is things like training people on how do you present yourselves digitally today, particularly for businesses, are becoming the name of the game. So gone are those days, where I have to create an opportunity. I have to go and work for an organization. I'll have to fit into the JD of an organization, and rather I'm creating a path for on a particular area of specialization that doesn't exist, and I'm leaving a trail for others to follow. That's the mode and the transition that I'm seeing in many of the opportunities. Just to give you one of the hottest and the I think this is something that's close to my heart as well. Gaming and game design, right?
Yes.
Gaming and game design is not something that is only for gamers who are between 15 and 45 as a space today. Today, if you would like to look at education as a space, the mode of engagement to a teacher and student has shifted dramatically, right? You teach with joy because you need to touch the
Right.
heart, and gaming becomes a very critical area, right? You want to engage an audience, kaun banega crorepati, right? That is the gaming as a phenomenon. Or even for that matter, Shark Tank, right? Shark Tank is in a quasi gaming mode.
Right.
Or even for that matter, when you look at any of the crossword puzzles that you typically used to see in just the newspapers physical format, today has shifted to game mode. Candy Crush, is something that is played by any age brackets today,
Exactly.
right? But if you look at the underlying, modes of engagements, businesses have also shifted in those ways. Let's say, for example, you are a user. Let's say, for example, you are a user of one of the, consumer-centric business applications, things like Cred, right? Cred, makes you play certain games, and then it also brings in that knowledge of a particular new product offering as an area. So there is a games to consumer engagement as a model. So there are different ways by which some of these models are actually evolving. So in short, I'm just giving one of the examples in the plethora of opportunities that a game designer could make humongous amount of money in a gig world. And similarly, I'm seeing many other areas. For example, character animation. Right? Character animation is an extremely creative work. There's no formal course for it. That I have seen at least in India or some other parts of the market. But character today defines how an individual can correlate to it. Just to give you an example, I think Chota Beam is something that children like,
Right.
and there is Chota Beam was actually a gig workers economy output. I don't think it was just
Yes.
created by an organization per se, and small organization then now of course is morphed himself into a large animation house, for that matter, Krishna for that matter, now of course owned by Reliance, but was actually an effort of a bunch of gig economy players, right? There are multiple such examples. If you look at contests to win, which Vikas used to. I'm sorry, I don't remember the owner's name, but at one point in time, they were all in a mode of looking at things in a very, I would say, uh, gig way, and then they've gone into a formal. Uh, so today, internet is a vast playing football ground. Uh, you define the goalpost, and I think you can dribble the ball the way you would like to, as long as it meets again the ulterior motive of individuals, and there is no golden rule saying that hey, this is the only way. You can define new ways, and there are different mediums to reach there: voice, video, data, design, uh, 3D, and today I think the options are enormous, given the fact that you are no longer restricted to one language. You can touch the rural population of India in different ways as a scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Indeed, sir. I think you have again very beautifully described all those things. And I can say, sir, there's a lot more to learn from you, but today I don't want to take too much of your time. So, moving to my last question of this session, actually, this global pandemic and other recent shared experiences have inspired us to ask what else. So, my question to you is, what are the mindset and skills see that skill set that need to develop, and what is the advice will be from your side to students those who are still in their colleges? What type of skills they must develop in the colleges in order to make themselves more compatible with the industry demand?
Sure. So I'll repeat one of the point which I started off with a few minutes back. One is a product to platform shift, intuition to fact shift, and the transactions to experience shift are critical, right? And your ability to scale has got everything to do with how you design solutions to solve problems, not just for your mohalla or your town, but for a larger cross section of people across the length and breadth of your state or your entire country, right? That's the first important aspect. Second important aspect, will obviously be towards collaborate. Don't try to be a lone ranger. Collaborate through connected, you know, creativity and digital means in the current hybrid environment. Don't forget that you are in a hybrid environment. It is not just a digital environment. The third aspect of it, is smarter decision making, and it needs to be backed up by data. And don't just go blindly by your intuition. Intuition is a very important aspect
Yes.
of decision making, no doubt, but it needs to be backed up by data to a larger extent in case you need to scale. And scalability in a country like India is very, very critical. Having said that, you know, the most critical aspect of all of these pointers is, don't just look at everything only from a job or a specific transactional aspect standpoint. Look at the larger picture. What is the headroom for growth? And don't be afraid of being failure. Failure is not a bad term. It's not a taboo. Failure is equal to growth. It's in fact proportionally equivalent to growth. It's disproportionately equivalent to growth if you're applying some of these 2-3 pointers that I just described right now as well. And the new era is all about how do you hyperscale, because we are a billion plus population, and the overall globe has got few more billions, right? And we are a young country,
Yes.
and we have the necessary intellect. Our ability to scale can be experimented in our country, and anything that works in a complex environment like India
Right.
can be taken global. So think global, you know, and act local initially, but don't be afraid to go global, right? And last but not the least, always think 2 levels up, work 1 level down. Please stay on the ground. Success is a continuous journey, like the way learning is, and the softer aspects of collaborating, communicating to get new ideas, continuous learning, and technology is always there. It is going to be a super expressive way. It is going to change, And in this VUCA world where things are volatile, uncertain, you don't have to be afraid or jittery about things. It's always about staying cool and ensuring that you analyze some of these things in a very uh, meaningful way and draw decisions that can uh, be differentiating between what is very very critical versus critical. you know with that, wishing you all the very best, and great success to all of you. And all of you are talented. One moment cannot define your success or failure. It is a journey. Thank you so very much.
Indeed, sir. It was really a very wonderful piece of advice from your side. And thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving your important time. It was a kind of a healthy conversation with you over the topic. And we look forward to more such opportunities in the future. And again, thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Harsh. Really appreciate. I look forward to opportunity this kind.
Yes, my
Wishing you
pleasure.
all the very best, and thank you, Freak Talks, for having me here. Wishing all the viewers, a great year ahead, and Jai Hind.
Thank you so much.
On the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside, I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold outside, I'm alone.